name's Justin Kavanagh. I've been a coach my entire life.
We're kind of in the same space, right? Like I fought professional MMA and, I took all that experience of just being a fighter and being around athletes and putting it into business owners.
How do you have the motivation? It's like, I don't have the motivation. It's just who I am. I just do that.
And it's so important to understand that when you're forged in a fire of depth and fear and trauma, abuse, just hard times, whatever it is, it really crafts you into something that's very special. And a lot of people don't want to go through that honing process. Welcome to the show. I'm just honored to have you. I'm here with Coach Cav, and just maybe introduce yourself to the audience, bro.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Honor's mine. I go by Coach Cav. My name's Justin Kavanagh. I've been a coach my entire life. I've played multiple sports growing up. Was born and raised in Miami, so I grew up in a sports environment, and competition was what was fun. I had an older brother that beat me up enough to where I didn't like getting beat up by other people, so I learned it the fun way. And sports was kind of my gateway drug to allowing me to kind of do whatever I wanted. I wrote my ticket to go to college and to kind of experience the world, and then got fast tracked into coaching because of trust. People around me were like, hey, I trust you, then I'm going to kind of be around you and I'll let you kind of be a part of my journey. And that then got moved into full time, primarily because of I got hurt and it ended my playing career. And I think oftentimes we look at things and we go, well, in God's timing, and it's he's got a little bit more of a sense of humor than we think. So I was fortunate enough to be around some really good people at a really early age that impacted me and teach life lessons through sports. I did that for a long time. I still do that, but at a high level. So started at the Olympic and pro level and never left. I think a lot of people in the coaching space, they dream of having kind of the job, the title, and the roles that I have. And I did when I first got into it. I think that was like the ultimate goal. But you realize it's actually one of the most vulnerable places to start. And what I mean by that is because like the spotlight's on you at the Olympic level and at the pro level, like you can't mess up. So my job in the beginning was don't fuck shit up. And then my role long term became how do I maintain the opportunities that I have through trust and results? Because the eye in the sky never lies. And fast track to where I am today. 6-time Olympic coach, been coaching in the pro sports world for 2 decades, working with the highest caliber of athlete. Now I just take those same strategies and tactics that put athletes on the podium and work with business owners in the boardroom and run businesses that I think that business is a team sport. And when you have the right people on your team, it makes it more purposeful. I think you could definitely go fast by yourself, but the opportunity to stay motivated and to keep, a sense of purpose is more around the people you do it with. So I've kind of found, I found my groove working and treating business like a sport and having fun competing along the way.
I was just writing something down because, me and you had a conversation about this specifically. Just we're kind of in the same space, right? Like I fought professional MMA and, I took all that experience of just being a fighter and being around athletes and putting it into business owners. And, we both had said like, it's crazy to see these business owners don't know how to use their mindset or think, at least not like the athletes do. And I'm just curious if you could touch on that. Like you're teaching these men, women, high-level business people how to think better, make better decisions, how to be cohesive with their team, have leadership. And I remember us specifically saying like we were shocked to see what we saw with businesses that were as successful as they were. I'm just curious if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, and I think that this is the difficult thing is that, at the competitive level that you are at, it's almost like you're unaware that that's a problem for people. And it's like, wait a second, this is just how we operate. But there's a whole world of people that their biggest limitation is their mental position and that it's a very fixated environment. Like they talk about mindset being that it's set. It's almost calibrated for a specific frequency and it doesn't change. And your mindset is almost, it should be calibrated based upon the environment and the intention and the outcome that you're trying to achieve. But oftentimes people are using the same mindset in every environment they go into. And then you wonder why they don't get different results. It's like, you got to change that. I think it starts with awareness. I think most people lack a sense of awareness. And you got to break the awareness down to 3 areas, right? You need to have this, just social awareness, what's happening around you. You need to be able to have like self-awareness, like where do I fit within the things around me? And then you need to have situational awareness based upon the environment, myself, and the context and how to actually navigate that. And that I should be able to dial my mindset based upon the environment that I'm in and the outcome that I'm trying to achieve. And as athletes, like we just like, hey, hey, get ready. Like, come on, you got to get ready. And it's like, no, no, no. Like, we just flip a switch. And when you look at other people in different environments, whether it be business or in their relationships, it's like they're waiting to be motivated, and they forget that motivation happens after action. It's a lagging indicator. It's not a leading indicator. It's a lagging indicator. Motivation comes from proof that I've done this before and I'm getting closer to where I am. I'm getting a rate of progress. So then I'm more motivated to keep doing it. But people will tell you all the time, like, oh, you got to be an athlete. You got to be like this mental warrior. And I'm like, I wake up in pain, not feeling excited. I'm not like, I'm going to crush my day. Let's go. I'm like, fuck, my fucking body hurts. I beat myself up for my entire life for fun. And now I'm taking the brunt of the pain today. It's not that enjoyable to wake up and motivating to go work out. I do it. And then after I get moving, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I did it, but I wasn't when I was starting. And this is the same thing with almost everything that people try to achieve is they think what makes somebody great is very different than what actually makes somebody
Yeah,
great. And what I want to change is that I want to I love the fact that you at least see it because of your self-awareness, but more importantly, you have the ability to actually see it in others, which they can't see it in themselves. And they also can't see it in their situations. And that's where like the gauge of coaching comes in.
dude, it's funny because coaching is so important. I tell people all the time, like, I will believe in you more than you believe in yourself, and it'll be contagious because I can see what you can't see. And I was thinking about, I just love using leading and lagging indicators. You're like, what's that? I'm like, dude, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. No, bro, I'm going to go to the gym every day for 30 minutes on the treadmill, and then you lose your 50 pounds. And I think people don't have I don't know if it's just the day-to-day discipline or what they're missing, but it's quite interesting to see the way people shape and think about what actually it is versus what it is. And I think it's because they lack so much experience. I always tell people, I say, you want to be the hero, but you don't want to walk the hero's journey. And I don't think people realize day to day, like, bro, I'm 47. I know you're in your 40s. Like, we fucking hurt, dude. Like, we get up and we're just like, and I'm still on the mat. I know you're still rolling. I'm still on the mat with 25-year-old black belts. Like, let's fucking go. And I can go just as hard one day. And then I need like 3 days off.
I was like, let me pump the brakes. Let me be honest with you. If people hear this, they're going to be like, you should go hard. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't
Whoa,
say that.
whoa.
So
Dude.
it's interesting because like you talk about rolling, I got a wake up call. Like I'd the benefit of fighting is that it's a team environment and a locker room environment, but it's a solo sport. Like you got nobody else to blame but yourself. What's also very fascinating about it is you could control your practice schedule. You could control camp yourself. If you're in camp and I've been in camp with some badass dudes and they're in charge. So you're always in camp with the person who like whoever, like if you're in Canelo's environment and you're getting ready for a fight too, like they're not curating the journey based upon you, you know? And if you're in Anderson Silva's camp and he's getting ready for a title fight and you're getting ready for your fight, like it's not the whole training is not geared around yours. And this may be your Super Bowl. It may be your world title fight. So what needs to happen is there needs to be emotional maturity around understanding what environment you're in and your role, but also you need to be selfish as an athlete and say, hey, I know that we're on his schedule, but I need to manage my own journey and my time. And I would go into to roll sometimes and be like, all right, I'm going to take it easy today. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to kind of like, I need to break a sweat. I got to get in there. It doesn't feel good. I got some rust going on. My shoulder's bothering me. I got to get this in because it's just what you do. There's a point in your life in training and in the work where it's like, it just becomes who you are. And how do you have the motivation? It's like, I don't have the motivation. It's just who I am. I just do that. And, this really started to click for me when I started doing 2-a-day trainings, when I was having like my work like blocked off and they're like, well, how do you have the motivation to go twice a day? Or how do you even carve out the time? And it's like, that is my schedule. Like I just do it and it's planned. But what happened was I'd get in there with this intention of like, I just want to go light today. And then this young guy comes in and goes, today's the day I'm going to beat Cav's ass. Like today's the day where they feel good and he's hurting and they're going to come in with an agenda to be like, I'm going to put it on them like it was like their title fight. And I'm like, I just want to break a sweat. So sometimes you go into an environment where you're just trying to get the experience and you're just trying to roll, you're just trying to chill, and someone else comes in with a different agenda. And if you don't have the capability of matching the energy of somebody else's agenda, then you're going to always be on someone else's schedule. So I'm a big believer of like, I determine my schedule. I determine my agenda going into it. And I have the ability to ramp up and then ramp down. Right. But if I didn't have that skill, like, hey, I just want to come in and chill today, and that kid wants to just beat me up and he can't beat me up, then part of that is my fault to play his game. The other part of that is I need to have better skill that like I have to like be able to equalize him. And I've been able to do that. Like I've been able to go in environments and like, hey, I just want to neutralize you. And I could just do that. Like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Like if you want to go hard, you go hard. Just understand that if I match your energy, you ain't gonna like what's gonna happen. And we
Facts.
need to do that in all environments. And I think the more you're able to do that in environments, you take your mindset from a position to the point where you actually have the control to dial it up and down.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm writing a book and it's about the dichotomy or the paradox of everything. And people want to put things in boxes. I'm red pill. I'm left wing. I'm blue hair. I'm nationalist. And the
I'm go ahead.
real
So we're good.
same. But you know what I'm saying, bro? Like, it's like they don't know how to dance, right? And I'm like, y'all, this is a dance and you need to play in between that all the time. You can't be like this way or that way. And I think it's easier for people to compartmentalize because they don't want to have all of the inputs. They don't want to do what you just said. Like, oh, I can just go one speed or one gear. Like, that's not how you get great. And I wrote this down. I was saying, like, when I was doing 2-a-days, which I'm actually going to go back to this week, I was more motivated and had more energy than when I wasn't. And so what people don't understand, it goes back to what you're saying, like you have more energy, you have more discipline, you have more motivation when you're doing the things, and it does become a part of your lifestyle. But something I wanted to talk about was two things. Was I was taught from a very young age, at literally 14 years old, I used to study a martial art called Sansu, a reality-based martial art, was being able to turn that switch on and then completely turn it off. On, completely turn it off. And if that capacity is what makes you great, because we do need to compartmentalize at times. You need to like be with your daughter, like hugging her, holding her, playing, feeding her, whatever. And then be like, some dude's a threat. I need to switch it on. And then when that's gone, come back and be like, yo, I'm with the family now. I'm not like, oh, this motherfucker. Like, bro, be an adult. And you see the maturity there. But the ownership piece was really important for me because and I know there's some really good jujitsu instructors and there's some really shitty ones. There's dudes on their phone walking around like da 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 da, and you have to own your training. I used to talk to my nephew. He's like, yeah, I kind of go in there. I don't know how I feel with the teacher. I'm like, bro, you got to own your training, bro. Because he was a really good wrestler. And, he went in and he trained jujitsu with me. And I was like, man, it's your training. It's your life. You've got to own that. There are no excuses. And yes, you might have to play within that paradigm, right? Like if I'm in a camp and Drysdale's running it and there's Hanato Kanuto and whoever around, like, yeah, like obviously, like I am not the star.
There's levels to this. Yeah.
Right. These guys are way above my level, but I still got to get what I need out of it.
Mhm.
So I love
I
that.
think it's cool. I think, I tell people in coaching that, before you start thinking outside of the box, you need to know what's inside the box and like what's in your lane. And then you could actually start to go outside. Right. You talk about it's not necessarily, picking the red pill or picking the blue pill, but you do need to like understand what's in your lane. You got to understand what's in your box before you start thinking, I want to do this, and you start being creative. Because like creativity comes from the constraint. You talked about two things, which is fascinating. I think that they're my favorite. I tell everybody that my favorite parenting book, and everyone's like, "Ooh, I want to pay attention to that," because like as a coach, people want advice in a lot of ways. And my son's 9 now, and I think that it always changes. But my favorite parenting book is a book called Range by David Epstein, and he wrote The Sports Gene, which is a great book as well. But Range is this kind of it takes a look at all of these elite athletes and the stories that they had through their childhood and the wide, vast experiences that they went wide. And in business, like in our marketing company and like strategy that we use, we call everybody a T-shaped marketer and kind of use it as a play on words because you got to go wide before you could go deep. And my wife's Tanya, my son's Thomas. So it's like, it kind of works out really well. And we want to have everybody in the company have an understanding from A to Z. What does the business do? But then you want to have subject matter experts that take the stick vertical and go deep as possible into their expertise as an individual contributor within a company. But the power is then working together, one of those subject matter experts next side by side, but not working in silos, working in synergy across an understanding that wide, but all of the dots are connected. And as interesting as we talked about like range, David wrote a book called, I think, Inside the Box. And it's just talk about kind of how things come from those constraints. And I highly recommend anybody, whether if you're a parent or a coach or a high performer. Those are he wrote 3 books that are a series. One called The Sports Gene, which again, you could leave a lot of it up to chance, right? Which we can't control our DNA and our environment. But I do believe environment always wins. That like if you are taking yourself and you put yourself in an environment, you will adapt because you're there to survive. And the right people will rise to the top and you'll get the most out of it. And sometimes you'll almost by osmosis, you'll be like, I didn't realize how good I got because I was just in an environment with all these people. And then you leave and you're like, oh my God, that was incredible. But normally people cannot appreciate environments until they leave them. And it's the same thing with awareness. It's hard to read the label from inside the jar. People can't see themselves without like someone being honest with them, normally a very hard friend or someone who loves them that's telling them the truth. These environments, you get into another environment, really powerful. But range is about changing your environments to change stimuluses to then get curious. And I think part of, a really mature executive or a high performer, this what I would call like an entrepreneur athlete, like somebody who's like, you know, mentally going on this marathon that's going to be grueling for them, is someone has to have a level of intellectual curiosity. And the deep interest in things beyond their natural expertise is really, really powerful. So my encouragement to everybody is to be, curious. I mean, when we were just talking about our 15-year wedding anniversary and Tanya and I, we went to Rome and we went to the Vatican for our tour. We went to do a bunch of things, got to see the Colosseum and just looking at the history, it's just fascinating. And I started to take Thomas to different cities to travel, something that I didn't do when I was younger. We traveled a lot around the US, but now we get to go around the world and I get to share some cool places with him. But my wife started a tour guide, like an individual private tour guide. And we went to London and it was like, Thomas, what did you learn? And he goes, there was a lot of kings and a lot of beheadings. That was the only thing he got out of it as a 9-year-old. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, and it was hilarious, right? And it's like, that is true. London had a lot of kings and a lot of beheadings, but here he is. We got to go to the Louvre in Paris. And I think about it, it was my first time and I'm sharing that with him. And it's exposing him to so many different things to see what he's interested in. And we went to a dinner and it was a Michelin star chef. And I sat down and started talking to him. I was like, hey, like, how's it been now that you've already got your recognition? And how's it been almost holding that status? You spend your entire life to kind of get this Michelin star. What's it been? And we're having a great conversation. And they treated Thomas like gold. They basically got him behind the kitchen. They got him a chef's hat. I've never seen the excitement in my son's face ever before. I do not know if he's going to ever go into cooking or become a chef, but I've never seen the joy in his face like I did that day. And it's in that experience as parents, we would have never known that he would have had that interest without someone else saying, hey, come and do this. And it weren't for the fact that we were going to different environments to see that. And just exposing yourself to things outside of what you're already good at naturally is, I think, probably one of the greatest ways to stretch yourself. And you and I have kind of got deep and then dark in a lot of areas of our lives. And I think you need to do that by isolating the noise in environments to when you want to have like a championships mindset and you want to achieve something, nothing could get in the way. No drama, no one else's agenda, no one else's thing. But we are singularly focused at a point in our life that this is the time and season of our life to achieve something. And when I'm there, like, don't mess with. But to get there, I think that you need to be able to have those experiences to be like, okay, this is a purpose. This is what I'm going to drive to. And oftentimes people don't commit enough to really find out what they're made out of. And I think that you should always be intellectually curious. And I also feel like you need to go into a deep, dark place to find out who you really are too.
I have had the darkest 2 years, one of them of my life recently, and coming out just 10 times better. And it's interesting because there's signal and there's noise, right? And when you pay attention to signal, all the noise gets wiped out. And it's so important to understand that when you're forged in a fire of depth and fear and trauma, abuse, just hard times, whatever it is, it really crafts you into something that's very special. And a lot of people don't want to go through that honing process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I'm not going to lie to you. And I know you know firsthand, Cav, that it fucking sucks. It is miserable, but it will build you into the man you want to be. And it's so funny. It brings up a subject that I wanted to talk about. I do want to go back to curiosity because I have a really big one on that I want to share. But the whole idea of just, there's a lot of men I see out there going to these boot camps. And I got a lot of special operator buddies. I think you do too. And these guys are like, why the fuck would you pay some 50-year-old dude to kick dirt in your face and call you a pussy? And what I realized is that you and I grew up in a very similar environment. You know, we didn't grow up in the greatest neighborhoods. We grew up around a lot of violence and drugs, if I remember, you know, us having the conversation prior. And we went through hard times and we fought for everything we had. And we were also athletes. So we fought for everything we had. And it created something inside of us that I think is just, it's priceless and it cannot be had any other way. And then I have some friends, which you actually probably know these people, I won't mention them, who are trust fund kids. And you can see in their almost 50s, they don't have what we have. They don't have that peace. They don't have that groundedness. They've never earned. And I realize, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is just that darkness, that struggle, that depth, it brings out something in you that people are literally paying Bedros Killian $20,000 for. And nothing, the guy's great. I actually love Bedros. To have these people scream and yell at them because they don't feel like men. And I think that's what our society is missing, is that we're like a bunch of little boys running around and no one's really gone through the rite of passage to be a man.
Well, I think the definition of what does it mean to be a man is very different from different people,
Totally.
and I'm not talking at the political level. I'm talking
Right.
about at the like what was our intention to protect and to serve and to provide. I think that I challenge a lot of people's thinking around this concept a lot. I wrote my book Man Up for the legacy that I was leaving to all of the kids that I was coaching for years. And it was this concept and idea around, it was like grow some balls. We were in Spain and guy put a bet on me. He's like, "Hey, I bet you wouldn't do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'll take you on that." Like, there's nothing better than someone challenging you, right? It's almost fun. So I built a concept that was for athletes around like if you were not happy with where you are, what would that come to Jesus meeting be? And this is mainly for middle school and high school athletes that I wrote this for, and it was balance. Balance is a misunderstood term. No one that I've ever met in high performing athletics or achievement in business or sport is anyone that has been what you would consider truly balanced at 50-50. Balance is about strategic priorities. It's that I am balanced. I am aligned with my actions and my ambition. And those things are aligned, and therefore I am higher likely to achieve them. But I am almost out of balance if I'm like hedging my bets and if I'm basically like 1 foot in here and 1 foot over there. So balance to me is all about strategic priorities. I have to do the things that I'm required to do. If you're a college or high school athlete, you're a student athlete. You have to do your academic requirements first. Then you get to be that. If you're a pro athlete, then you need to handle like what does it mean to be a pro, but like if you don't have food and shelter, like you can't actually fulfill the role of being a pro. If you're a husband or a father and you aren't taking care of your responsibilities, then like how are you going to be able to go into training is going to be an outlet from your responsibilities instead of the thing that you could pour into to become something great. Balance is about strategic priority. A stands for accountability. Like nobody got anywhere by blaming other people. You can't do your push-ups for somebody else. So accountability is taking ownership. I believe that lust is a good driver. That's your early motivation. I've seen a lot of kids get really motivated by looking over and seeing somebody pretty that says, "Hey, that's a pretty girl, but I work a little harder today," you know? And love is this deep drive that never leaves you. I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to do it for me. And then sacrifice. I think that I tell the story in the book around there's no greater sacrifice, for man than Jesus. And it's probably one of the best leadership books you can ever read is the Bible and the life of Christ. But you are going to sacrifice things along the way. And my wife reminds me that like things are meant to be used, people are meant to be cherished. So you are going to sacrifice things. Just don't sacrifice people. And normally what you'll find in your path for like you want to have this journey is that people are going to go into different buckets and they're not going to necessarily like they're not going to be in for this season of your life. I always look at it and go, one of the things that I look for when we hire people is enthusiasm. It's probably one of the easiest traits to find. Successful candidates are people that are very enthusiastic. They tend to do pretty well, even if they're not that great at their job or they don't have certain skills, we could develop that. But if they're not enthusiastic, then like the rate of growth isn't going to be there. Their interest in learning isn't going to be there. But enthusiastic people go further in life. And I tell you this is like, you ever been around people in your life that are naysayers? They're like, I don't believe you, or I'm not sure. It's like, well, you just started doing this and I don't believe you because all of your past performances have proven to me that you're not going to stick with this. But if you're enthusiastic about something and you're all in and you do it long enough, what will happen is you'll start to be contagious to the right people and they'll start to attract you. You talk about signal and noise, just the idea of a magnet. And it's like, I can't even get this to stick, but if I flip it around, it'll snap right there. And it's the idea of signal to noise is just a matter of like, are you sending out signals that are attracting you? Or are you sending out signals that are pushing and you're like almost trying to force something there and it no matter how close you get to it kicks you off. And you see this with people in sport where they get almost to the top and then something always falls apart. They get to the top, they can't make weight. They get as close as they can to a championship, they get injured because they don't know how to navigate. They have an ego in the training room and not actually inside the ring. You see coaches that self-sabotage their own client success because it's not about them because they're not in the arena. We see this all the time. And it's like you could get so close, but you can't put it there. You just, no matter what, until you get the right thing. And now all of a sudden it just snaps into place. This is purely because they're always trying to be better. They're not operating like champions do. And the difference between people that are on the podium and the people that are just in the room to compete are very different. And you have to understand that. So, I don't think that everyone's definition of being a man is the same. And I think that when I look at all of the things that what to me is important, I realize it's not that important to other people. And I go, that's what they're struggling with. Like their definition of the actual word is different. For me, as an example, I'm a big tough guy. I could probably do damage if I need to. Like I walk into rooms with a lot of confidence, knowing that like, hey, I'm not gonna feel good, but someone's going to the hospital, it's probably not gonna be me, you know? But like I'm not fully trained right now to be like, I can take some beatings and still feel good. Like I'm gonna hurt a little bit. But I don't walk into a room with a bunch of like, I feel, inferior to people. Like it's just not something that I need to worry about in most environments I go to. And normally if I'm going to go to an environment where I'm not the biggest, guy in the room, like that guy's normally with me. Like it's like I could pick on him because he's my friend. I'm not gonna, like you just know better. Some people just can't figure that out. Some people are delusional, right? Some people are like, they look at the big jack dude and they're like, ooh, he's big and scary. And I'm like, that's the first guy I'm going after because it makes it look good, So I think some people are purely delusional and they're like, I think they could handle themselves. And one of the things about sports is game film doesn't lie, right? The eye in the sky doesn't lie. The scoreboard tells the truth. So your job is to have the self like reflection and know where you stand. Most people, I think, just don't know that because they've never been tested. So
Yeah.
I think about this all the time. As an example, I have a 9-year-old son. I have a high-powered, very intelligent wife, and she is like everyone knows that if I die, like everyone knows she did it. Like she like I did something that she gonna cut me for, and everyone knows it, and it's fun just in case. I also wanted to put that on record here, just so everyone is aware. But if you've ever met her and you spend any time with her, you're like, oh, like she doesn't need me. She holds her own. She's very impressive in a lot of ways. What do I want? Do I want to raise my son in a way to where it's like, how do you be powerful in your own house? How do you be like a big, strong man? Or do I want my son to know what it means to be strong enough to be attracted to a strong woman? Do I want my son to be attracted to a weak woman that he has to actually command and control? Or do I want him to be attracted to someone that he could lead beyond his means so that has supports him? Because I wouldn't have got to my level of success the same way without her. And I get checked every day and she does a level of complacency. She helps me achieve, like, she's like, there's no better supporter in my life than my parents and my wife. But boy, is there no better pressure than someone who believes in you that knows that you're meant for more either. I think that definition is a definition that you're not going to get to being a man by being yelled at by another grown man. You're going to be tested in how you show up every day when you wake up.
I agree. I think it's a very interesting analogy you made there, because you're seeing so much of this kind of red pill, maybe even leaning on the Andrew Tate side. Like I got friends that are, part of his organization and, find the 19, 20-year-old girl, mold her. And you're just like, this is a child who is going to be nothing but just some sort of ancillary asset to you. If you want to even call her an asset, I'd probably call her a liability. And when you meet a woman that can really submit to you and be loving and nurturing and kind in the same breath, push you to your limit and hold you accountable and check your ass, I think you're very blessed. And I think society has this skewed idea of what femininity really is. Because feminine power it's probably the most powerful force on earth. It creates humans. And when it's channeled properly, that woman will elevate you more than any 5-day weekend boot camp ever will. And she'll also hold you accountable in ways. But here's the thing, you got to be man enough to handle that. You've got to have someone with a mirror. I had this in multiple relationships of my own, reversed, where people say they want to be elevated. And then you hold up a mirror and go, hey, look what you're doing. This isn't what you said you wanted to do. And they run or they hide. And we do that because we don't have enough courage to face ourselves. And when someone you love, truly love, who's nurturing you and caring about you and literally coddling you, literally at times coddling you, maybe rubbing your head, holding you like a baby. And then that same person goes, yo, motherfucker, you're playing small. You said you wanted this. What the hell are you doing eating that tub of ice cream? Why aren't you getting out of bed? You said you were going to go talk to this guy. What are you doing with your life? That it pierces your soul. And if you're not strong, you don't have courage, man, you will crumble and you'll run away from it and you'll find an easier mate.
Yeah. Again, I think a lot of times people are attracted to the illusion of what they think they want to become, not knowing what it takes to become that. And I also think people are listening to people that are nowhere near that they want to be. So for instance, oftentimes people take advice from coaches and they'll be coached by them, they'll be mentored by them. And I kind of back up and go, like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And then what is the body of evidence that the person that you're listening to has had any just idea or even just an ounce of something that is aligned with that? What are we doing? Like, well, I have a rare ability to just seek out some people that are really, really good. And like, if I'm trying to learn something, I'm going to go to the best at what they do. And like my group of people, everyone's like, oh man, you got like the team of Avengers around me. I'm like, I know, because number one, I think about it just like in business strategy, where like you got to be able to be wide enough to be able to connect the dots to things. But you also got to be smart enough to know, once you connect the dots, who's the best person in that role and how do you stay in your lane? Like, I know my lane, and how do I bring the best person so I feel empowered and I feel stronger going into an environment at the Olympics or in a pro sport environment or going into a business strategy when I have the team around me that is the best at what they do. I don't have to be fighting for that role too. And I don't pretend to do things. So I think everybody wants to think that they know everything. And it's like, who am I listening to? Oftentimes people are just constantly in an environment where they're like, I need to be the only voice in the room. And it's like, you're never going to get good. Like, I walk in environments where I'm the biggest, strongest guy, and I change the next door and I'm like, I don't even belong, and you walk in and I think about you look at like mixed martial arts and you think about like going to different environments. Like, you should go to striking camps. Like, you should, like, I understand that, their base is going to be probably a little bit more narrow. I understand they're going to be a little bit more calm and not worried about like takedown. I understand they're probably not going to be able to grapple with you a little bit. But if you could understand certain fundamentals of what they're doing at the striking level, at a high level, man, you could adapt that to your world. And if you get into like an American or a Russian or a Cuban like wrestling environment and you just understand what that's like, it's like a completely different level. And if you get into like a boxing environment and you get into like how somebody works there, you're able to naturally navigate like these high level rooms, because those high level people have the ability to go down.
Totally.
But what happens is if you're trying to do everything, you don't have the ability to go up in everything. So now you have people basically meeting you where you are, collapsing your time and energy to get there. You have less experience that you need to achieve these goals, and you can accelerate much faster. But it only happens when you're honest with yourself around, why am I in this room? And it's to learn from the best person. And I need to basically like be a student, and I want to be able to rinse and repeat that work. I want to be able to go, okay, here's what I'm doing. Test it. I want to try it. I want to find out what I'm doing is wrong. I don't want to get there and be like, I know what I'm doing. You want to expose yourself as best as you can. and let them work. When we talk a little bit about like grappling environments, and I remember working with like Big Dan, and it's like you can't really do much to a guy like that. You just can't. He's that good and he's that big. And the conversation is simple. It's like, what is your best position? Like, I'm a side control guy. I could just sit in side control and do what I want. He's like, okay, cool. Get me in side control. Because what do you think he wants to do? He wants to work on your best thing while he is in a different, because if we're just going, if we're going to be like, all right, let's just roll, like it's not going to be much of a fun conversation. But if you create limitations, then all of a sudden now, like one person's working in their strength, one person's working in their weakness. And now you could basically calibrate skill levels to where they both get some value out of it. And now this person doesn't always have to feel like he's just supporting you because you're the underling. This person is like, I'm able to get really good work in this one area.
Totally.
And that's really valuable to me. And I think that you see that in like John's environment with all of the people he has. He's like, I only want you working left side here. And he'll take another person and it's like, you're doing this one thing. And that to me is the ability to like back up and get perspective and go, this is what you should be doing. Most people don't want that. And most people choose to work with people that have never achieved anything that is remotely close to what they want to achieve.
I agree completely. I think most people do not want that level. They're delusional about what they say they want, and then they see what it actually takes, and they immediately crumble. And that's how you can test. You can see who really wants it. But I'm chomping at the bit right now to talk about something that's been on my fucking nerves.
Hey,
So
man.
it's funny you mentioned that because so what I've seen recently is, listen, you got some young guys on gear in their early 20s, just jacked, ripped. That takes effort. I give it to them, right? I give it
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
They got really good at marketing and copywriting, and they have confidence. And they're coming out there at 22, 23 years old, and they're just boasting this whole confidence. And dudes are looking like, oh, he's jacked and he seems so confident. And when you get in front of those guys and you really talk to them like this, me and you can see the insecurity in them. And it's really frustrating to me because you should not be a life coach in your 20s. You just shouldn't be. You don't have enough experience, you know?
So it's interesting to me because we see the same problem with high performing athletes where some athletes will not go to the coach that models behavior that they want to achieve. I have a very good track record. My resume is pretty strong, so I feel pretty good about that. I'll always be willing to bring my ego to the table when it comes to results because it's like, hey, you can't change the record books and we beat you, so get over it. Or you don't like it, you're welcome to beat me next time, but in this time, I'll wait from you at the podium. And oftentimes, what I think about is the reason why people follow people that are not that impressive is because the gap between where they are and who they're following is a realistic jump for them.
Interesting point.
They don't feel like that gap is too impossible. So they'll model behavior because I would rather hire a coach that I think I could possibly achieve what he's doing so that I could model. If I'm the young guy and I'm looking up to another young guy that has all this like bravado and ego and he's like that, there's something about him that I realize isn't that big of a leap for me to become. But when you start modeling after someone who doesn't need to do that and they could just kind of chill and they let that come to them and they're just more letting things be attracted to them, the people that they're attracting are almost even bigger than they are. Like
Totally.
I would almost look at my portfolio of customers, clients, business associates. They've all achieved in some area of their life significantly higher than I have. Like,
Same.
my collection of billionaire clients, my collection of Olympic champions, and my collection of like incredible human beings that are recognized for their just amazing talent is at a level that is unbelievable. Like, it is just like unreal. But also, I also realize, like, in the world of coaching, in the macro view of it, at the Olympic level, and my diversity of stuff, like, not many people have ever come close to what I've done. In my world at speed, in my world at the details, it's just a 1% class. I know that. So they're attracted to the fact that I am at their level in this other thing so that I know what it's like to go to the depths of the world to achieve this super, super hard thing to achieve that nobody even gets close to.
You've also proven that you can take that 1% of people and take them to the next level now too, which is very, very rare.
It's easy to take a guy here and just bump him up. I mean, it's not that
Totally.
hard.
Like, how do you make Canelo a better boxer? You're like, fuck.
And that's the thing that I do have a very good coaching eye. I'm very I'm recognized for people saying, Cav, you see things in full speed that we don't see until we slow the video down. How do you see that? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, in sport, it's rhythm and rate. So you're like, whenever you see like the hit the ground, there's like an action that happens, like a ripple effect in the body. And you have to be able to like correlate that rhythm to other parts of the body and what happens. And you could see this in like, boxing, you could see this in fighting where like, there's this natural movement that people do. And it's like, he's got this like cadence and we're just trying to mess with the cadence. Like the easiest way to get somebody tired is to feint. It's just like, wow, and we're trying to create feints to actually get them tired. And the reason why you get someone tired by creating feints is it gets them out of their rhythm. So my ability to see rhythms and to dance with the athlete and the ability to see things of like, oh, I understand that we want this song to kind of come down at the end. So we got to build this one moment up, bring it down, and then rebuild this big moment up and then bring it down. And that I don't need everything to be this peak. I don't need every moment in coaching to be this climax of a conversation. I don't need it to be that intense. Sometimes I can just have it naturally come down so that when we're ready to turn it on, we're almost in a better position. And I respect that natural sequence. Most people are so like, I have to look a certain way, where if you watch me coach, I'm gonna be like, fucking guy getting ready for an Olympic championship and this is boring. And I'm like, I know, because I'm just sitting here talking to him. And they're like, how is that coaching? It's like, because I'm setting up the thing that matters. Like I'm doing the thing so that the next thing is more valuable. And everybody's like, well, we got to be intentional about this and we have to be intentional. Part of the intention is almost removing the stress from the environment.
Totally.
And what happens with people that you're referring to, in my opinion, is they don't know the sequence, what success looks like. To get to success, they don't understand a sequence because they're only 20, they're only 30. So they haven't lived long enough to realize, shit, I was an idiot back then. That's what I need to do. So when they look up to people, that's just a small step to achievement that they feel is realistic. It's too big of a leap to go after somebody like yourself to say, I want to achieve more. It's too big of a leap for them. That's actually very insecure for people to say, I'm going to get coached by somebody that is at a level and the group of people that he's working with is well beyond where I am. Well, how else do you think you're going to get there?
Exactly. Yeah, I think I will say this though. I agree with everything you said, but I would say on the non-client side, on the coach side, I think there's a level of ethics where it's like, listen, you're teaching men about masculinity, but you're 28 years old and you got 2 baby mamas in 2 different countries and how to be a father. And I think that really does bother me because I just want the clients to take a deep look at the fruit, just like it talks in the Bible, like what fruit does this bear? Look at that person's life, really pay attention to them. And if they're bearing the fruit that you want, right, then go for that person. But if they're not, I would say steer very clear because what I've seen, and remember, I'm in a lot of the net online marketing space. Like me and you talked about this. You're like, Mark, I really revere the word coach. And I'm like, damn, Cab, like I wish it means a lot to you. And I've switched to advisor because the word has become so diluted and it's actually hurt my soul a little bit because I take this very seriously. Like, I mean, I will pour my soul into somebody if they're willing to give it back. And so I think that's where I've been a little frustrated with the industry. And I'm down here in Medellin and we got this group chat and you got these 25, 28-year-old kids, whatever. And they're speaking in ways that is not becoming of them of being men and adults. And then people are looking to them for wisdom and guidance. And I think that when I look at social media as a whole, you have the blind leading the blind and you have a bunch of young kids leading kids that are younger. So now you got 25-year-olds trying to teach 16-year-olds what to do. And that might work for, hey, this is my funnel. Hey, this is how you market. Hey, this is how you write copy, but it doesn't work. It's good tactical, but it's not good for the soul because you haven't experienced enough life to understand what's good for your soul, as you said.
I understand the frustration. My energy cannot be
wasted there.
Area like I don't sell the unsellable. So the amount of athletes that people go like, how do you have such success coaching? Like, let's start with the fact that I pick my clients.
Bro, 1000%.
I'm gonna pick the guy that I think like. Other person's like, hey, we're gonna go to ADCCs. Who's your team? I'm like, I'll take Big Dan. Like, I don't know. Like, I just want to be a fan over here because like I'm not wrestling with him. But like,
totally.
If you gotta think about in the world of being a fan, like as a coach, do you want to root for somebody that you genuinely believe in, that you know you could help, or do you want I'm a fan of Dan's, even though I've been able to like be a part of the process, and he's let me into that world where he has the best coaches. Like John is the one of the best coaches of all time on the mats, and I'm
Can,
doing nothing in
can we
that
give a
world.
shout out to Dan though? Like he is probably one of the
No,
best humans I've ever met.
he's a small little pussy. I'll beat Dan's ass.
Dude,
I'll
he's
say that.
such a good fucking human being. I met him when he was like 19. I'm like, this is like one of the most violent on the mat, but like sweet, gentle, humble, loving guys I've ever met. Actually, I wouldn't say violent. He was actually very gentle. He just footlocked me like 20 times in 10 minutes.
So I like full disclosure. Like I think Dan knows how dangerous he is. So I've never been in a compromising situation with him on the mat because he just like he's not going to hurt me. Which when he knows the person can, there's a respect there. So like I would just like try to smack him and bother him because like there's a respect there that he's not going to break something. So it's like, hey, don't touch my legs. Like I'm freaking scared shitless of this stuff. Like, I don't want to be in a cast. But I think what people don't see is the dark times that somebody like Dan had to go through. Because Dan is treated completely unfair. Like the world treats certain people unfair because Dan looks like a grown ass man. And when he was in those rooms, he's in rooms with people that had 10 years, 20 years experience on him, but he's physically bigger than them. So they start treating him as if he's their emotional and social age. Now, Dan's intelligent. So
Super.
when you deal with people on the mat, most of the people that are intelligent are on the spectrum of intelligence, but they don't have the social capability. So Dan is at that same level of intelligence, but he hasn't swung all the way over to the TISM side yet, you know? So here you have a young kid that is doing everything he can to learn something, and he's not being persuaded by the environment norms, in my opinion. And I say this respectfully. You got to decide as a coach, who do you want to be fans of without ever being a fan? Because if you act like a fan, you're going to get treated like one. If you act like you belong, you get treated like you belong. And I will always support the journey of somebody because I believe that they could achieve something great. But I always need to know my role is to help them get the most out of what they are capable of. And they need to know that I believe in them, but they also need to know that I'm not going to take anything less than what they're capable of. And I think what Dan has done so well himself, if you think about it, it's very impressive that he sought out some amazing people because maybe he got lucky, but you don't get to certain environments without dealing with shit that nobody will talk about. See, Dan doesn't ever complain, and Dan doesn't ever he doesn't bully people. He's a bully's worst nightmare because if someone in that environment is that's why you look at the videos. Gordon's definitely more calm because he has that he knows where he stands, but Dan's intimidating. So all Dan has to stand up. But the thing is it's like baseball. If somebody, whoever does it, if you don't stand up, you've shown your cards. It's like you don't want to be the last guy in the dugout when your team's fighting. Dan has made it clear. Here's where my line is. This is what I respect about him the most, is that he's always made the implicit explicitly known. There's no mincing words because his actions are clear. That to me is a true test of a man, not the ability, I would have done something if something would have happened. No. He's letting you know, hey, cross this line, you're going to have to deal with me. That to me is a little bit more honorable than stepping back and be I got your back if it comes to that. Well, how do I know? And I think that this is where certain people have never, they don't know what loyalty is until it's tested. I think Dan does two things very well as a young professional athlete. Is number one, he makes the implicit explicit by action, not by thought, by action. And then number two is he's not swung or persuaded by other people's actions just to fit in. He's willing to take an uncomfortable path, whether it be driving hours, whether it be doing things his own way, because he feels like that's the right path for him. And most people, they will tend to swing. So my challenge to everybody is be careful who you look up to, just like you mentioned it on the young guy's standpoint, because they may not have all of their shit together. And the benefit of somebody being more vulnerable, even like yourself, you're willing to expose hey, I've been through some rough times. Those times that you went through are there to help someone else not have to go through them too. And you don't want to be a 17-year-old or 19-year-old kid looking up to a 24-year-old life coach. That what happens if you're in the middle of coaching with him and he's going through those dark times and he's never dealt with it? Do you want him navigating you? The biggest risk that you have is leaning and looking up to somebody who's never been to where you want to go.
100%. And it reminds me of something I've really been leaning on a lot lately, which is there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy. And when my guys hired me, I said, why'd you choose me? Like, bro, because you've been through it. And these are high level guys, $50 million businesses, mergers with Meta, like big dudes. And I'm just like, I actually have been through all these things and I can speak from experience and I came out the other side. I do want to just say one comment on Dan that I noticed is he embodies the word honor and integrity, and you just don't see that often anymore. Another person, Robert Drysdale, is another person I feel like embodies honor and integrity. It's just kind of missing in the world of MMA today, the world of the Jake Pauls, and I love Craig Jones, but you know that world, he's a funny guy, but just that specific dynamic. But I did want to switch gears here a bit as we kind of close this up a little, is something I've noticed, and I want to get your opinion on it, is when I work with my clients, I consider myself a strategic thinking partner. That's really what I am. And I help you make better decisions. I give you frameworks to make better decisions, and we excavate why you're running patterns that aren't making the right decisions. And I'm curious your thoughts on this, because everyone's talking about AI. And what I've seen is founders are already swamped. Most of them, like Steve Jobs, didn't make decisions past 1 or 3 p.m. for a reason, right? Because their brain didn't have the capacity. They have decision fatigue. And now AI is speeding things up at an exponential rate. And it's literally crushing the mind of these founders because they're moving almost too fast. The body can't keep up with the machine is what I've noticed. And I think it's a really unique, interesting example of what the future is going to be like. And here's my honest opinion. I think AI is going to expose all the leaders. And here's what I mean by that. Everything we talked about on this podcast is about depth, integrity, understanding how to navigate, use your proper mindset. The average leader, they micromanage, they do little shit to stand out, but they're not really good at their job. And I think AI is going to take all of those jobs that they do and expose them. And the only people that will exist in the next decade will be real leaders who can bring people together through vulnerability and integrity and get everybody rowing in the same direction. I think that will be the most, not that it hasn't always been the most sought after, but I think that will have so much atrophy in this area because of AI that the real leaders will be few and far between.
So I think that most people do not know how to compartmentalize their emotion from a decision. And what happens is oftentimes leaders are leading with feelings and then they're biased around the decision. So they will like retroactively make the data fit their narrative. This happened because this is the information and that's why. And retroactively, it's really easy to manufacture data to fit your narrative. And it's really easy for a lot of leaders to do that, to validate, well, they're all knowing and wise. I still think the world is going to seek out people that could solve problems. So the minute someone has a problem, they're not going to go to AI for a solution. They're going to go to people for the solution. And you got to think about it as people are not going to buy from AI. The system may be it may be superpowered with it, but people are going to have a problem and they're going to seek out another human to solve that problem. And whether it be because they need the validation, people are meant to have connection, and you need to do that with the tools that you have. But if you just replace your relationship with decision making through an AI framework, well, you're only as good as its inputs. And if you give it shit, you're going to get shit out. But I also don't want you to then be muted. Like, again, you talk about average. I think that there's a lot of people that say average is the enemy. I don't deal in that world. Like, I don't have a lot of experience of average being the enemy. I have people that I think the actual enemy is the illusion that you're great and you're just good. To me, the enemy is your illusion that you're great, but in reality, you're just good.
I think that's what I'm going to literally name this podcast. The illusion that you're great and you're just good.
I think that to me is the biggest issue, because I just don't deal in the world of averages. So most research do not support my work, because if you think about my background's in neuroscience. So academically, my background was in the idea of science. And when you look at research, you got everything on this charts, right? So you got a quadrant here, a quadrant there, and it's like you cut these two pieces off and now you use this data set, or it's a bell curve and you cut these two pieces off and then you use this data set. But I don't live in a world like that. So as a researcher, this is what the data has shown me. But as a experienced practitioner, my reality and my resume that's been forged in this reality is based on the fact that we are outliers. Johan Blake is an outlier of human performance. Like, these guys are outliers of anything, what is possible of anything physical. How can I work within the data set of averages.
Correct.
And that's what I think people don't realize. If you look at a chart of all of the best soccer players in the world in scoring, Messi is over here. The gap between Messi and everybody else is combined the same amount. What are we doing? Like people live in a world where they think that they're great and they're just good. And it's like, you got to learn, like there's a massive gap. And the first part of closing that gap is awareness. And you look at awareness, and I think you got to look at like the Johari window. You don't know what you don't know.
But you got to have people do that for you, Gav.
The
You
only
really
way
need to be
effective is to have people that are honest and direct with you.
It's it. And nobody wants that, dude. Nobody wants that. I want to close that up with you saying that one more time, because I think that's a perfect way to close. But I'll just say this is like, you do need to work harder, but you need to be vulnerable enough to admit that you don't know everything. You need support. And this is what coaches are for. This is what mentors are for. This is what peers are for. This is what a solid wife is for. This is what a solid husband's for. A good uncle, a dad, is to look you in the eye and go, yo, motherfucker, you're not as awesome as you think. What was that exact statement you said? The illusion that you're better than you.
And like, average is not the enemy. The illusion that you're great and that you're just good.
It's that, dude. I'm going to close it right there. And unless there's anything you want to say, bro, that's fucking
I
awesome.
appreciate you, man. I think that everyone has a role to lead the right people, and the tribe of people that you're going to curate and attract are the ones that are ready to hear that message. Not everyone's ready to be coached at your level, to be honest with you. My encouragement to you and to everybody listening is, you may need to take the leap or a reach to be able to work at your level, Mark. And people that are saying like, I'm not there, but I want to be there, they're better off collapsing time in going for that reach than saying, I'm willing just to work with this person because it's exciting today, and that leap is not that great. I would much prefer, if they're going to reach, they might as well reach for someone who's got some experience like yourself.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me, brother. And it's the big leap, right? And I think that's how we get better. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you for sure.